Hey guys, so got another video for you here, and this is what to look for when buying a used four-wheeler. Mainly Hondas, but some of this will be universal. And this is really gonna, when I'm talking about Hondas, I'm gonna say like 2014s and up. Rancher, Rubicon, Foreman's, all those things are pretty common parts on those models and things you can really check for. Specifically on these to make sure you're getting good stuff. Otherwise, covering stuff like airbox stuff like that is a lot easier to check and kind of universal among the Hondas, whether it's older or newer. So first, starting out cosmetically, obviously you can check for things like scratches and stuff like that. I have seen some of these Hondas where the powder coating will be coming off the frames here. You can see this one's in pretty good shape, but I looked at a one up in Virginia for sale that all the paint here was already missing on it, and it was it was in excellent shape. It had not been used in the mud. He hadn't been pressure washing or anything, but something happened. It was a paint defect or something where right around the welds, all the powder coat was just missing off the frame. So obviously that was one I wanted to avoid because it's just going to make it rust further down the road. Otherwise, these front bumpers do bend up pretty easy. So checking to make sure, everything's kind of aligned there and not off. Plastics wise, the panels aren't that expensive. Maybe, it's 4 separate pieces on these. So 1, 2, and then 3, 4, and then obviously the middle panels here. So if you have to replace one of these, they're $50 to $100 for the standard colors on Partzilla. It's really not too bad if you need to replace plastics. Otherwise, a good reference to check the miles and hours. Say, okay, if it's got 1,000 miles and 100 hours, he's probably riding more trails and stuff like that. But if you have one that's, really, really high hours and low miles, chances are it's been down in the mud and really used pretty hard. Whether it's work or towing stuff or in the mud, low and slow versus just, higher speed trail riding stuff, you can kind of tell. But getting out of some more Honda specific stuff here, you can obviously look and see inside the snorkel. If you're buying one, the snorkel, which I really wouldn't recommend it unless the history of it, or it's a really new, clean one. You never know if it's been sunk or whatever. But you can look down in there. If there's a bunch of grime and dirt and stuff like that, then chances are, it has been under at some point or just ridden hard. On these, it's pretty easy to pull the airbox lid if the airbox lid has been sealed on it. So, talking here, if you look and that airbox lid has been sealed or silicone shut for some reason, I would definitely avoid it. So that's not something I would mess with. You want to be able to change your air filters. You want to be able to service it, and you can't if that box is sealed shut. So if you see a bike like that, unless it's a really good deal or you trust the person, even then, I probably wouldn't buy it. But definitely something to look for out on these. But pull that air filter off and check inside the throttle body. So the air filter is just held on by a screw inside that air box. Pull it off and look in the throttle body. If it looks real, dirty in there, probably would avoid it because chances are it's been sunk or been run without an air filter, something like that. So some more stuff, kind of Honda specific. You can go here and on these newer Hondas, see that front drive shaft right there will start to leak. So these front output shaft seals, not too bad to replace, but they definitely do go bad. I had one go bad. It had maybe 200 miles on it, and this one's already bad. So grass, weeds will get stuck around that, kind of get pulled into that shaft and go bad. So it's not super hard to replace, but definitely look for that. You can kind of negotiate down if you find one. Otherwise, this is something I actually had seen from Mud Puppy. Check the shifter play. So you can see not how much it shifts, just kind of clutch engagement. So you want just a little bit of pull it there. You don't really want one that's been wore out or a lot of motion in it. Probably mean the clutch is worn down or something's going on there. So check for stuff like that. Obviously, axle boots are another thing to check. You don't want the boot looking like that. This is an axle that I know is going bad. I'm running it till it blows. I've got 2 demons for it. I didn't bother with rebuilding it. I'm just going to put demons in it. But you can see the grease there. This actually just got a tear in it from a stick. And so the boots have been leaking grease there. But check your axle boots. Make sure they're all in good shape. Make sure there's no leaks from the diff seals there. You can also check the rear output shaft seals the same way. Just make sure they're dry around the engine. You don't want dirt and mud getting in there. Another thing to check, if you have a jack with you or a buddy who's strong enough to just pick up the rear end, check the wheel bearings. So the easiest way to do that, I found, just jack it up a little bit, shake the tires, and if you're getting obviously motion out of there, then the wheel bearings probably need to be replaced. Other thing like that, sometimes you can tell based on steering, if it's got a little bit of play, that's okay. But if there's a lot of slop in the steering, it's either like the bushing or tie rods need to be replaced. So you really don't want those falling apart on you. Otherwise, checking stuff like ball joints, you can press down on the front ends, put some weight on them, and it should be nice and quiet if all bushings and stuff like that are good. I've seen some before where they're clunking because lower ball joints are loose, especially with these high lifter arms. The lower ball joints will kind of get loose. They're not a perfect fit, so make sure those are tight. You notice stuff like that before. Wiring, obviously, anything that's been modified. I put a Warn winch on this one recently, and all wiring is clean on this one because I've done it myself. But you see all kinds of crazy stuff with wiring. People have spliced in for underglow and things like that. So just watch out for stuff like that as well. The last tip I would say to watch out for, obviously get it up to speed, making sure if it's something, not a belt drive or a foot shifter, an ES like a Honda, going through all the gears good and it doesn't lurch forward when you put it in gear or anything funky action with the clutches. We've got a Recon over here that's probably got 7,000 or 8,000 miles on it. And it's real slow to take off just because the clutches are worn out on it. So watch for stuff like that as well. Just make sure it takes off nice and smooth. And, if it's lurching or just really slow to engage, the clutches are probably in rough shape. The dipstick on these is really easy to access just through that same door. Pull it off, check, make sure the oil's not milky, looks pretty clean. Obviously, anytime somebody's got service records and stuff like that, it helps. But another spot you can check to kind of see the condition of it, because people can shine them all up. This one's got SC1, all that stuff all over it. But what's underneath it, really? So a spot that people often don't clean is under on these floorboards right here. So if you look under there, if the bike looks real clean, but you look under there and there's a ton of mud caked up on that stuff, or the skid plates are really dirty in there, stuff like that, then you can kind of tell, okay, it's definitely been used maybe harder than you thought. Another good spot to check is the toolkit in here. So you'll have the toolkit there. If you pull that little Honda toolkit out and the foam inside of it is full of mud and water, you would know, okay, it's been in pretty deep if that foam is soaking wet in there. So little Honda toolkits are a good way to check. But that's really about it. So if you have any questions, let me know. Thanks for watching. Just like and follow, subscribe for more content. Thanks.